Hi everyone, it's Nancy here, and I'm back with something a little bit different for you. On my channel, I'm going to do a few videos of scraplifting. And this is because I was in a bit of a mojo flunk, so was looking around at some other people's layouts and decided that'd be a really good way to get my mojo back. And so this first layout that you're looking at here is by Carrie. She's one of my close scrapping friends. She's also on the Hey Little Magpie design team with me. So this is her layout, and this is what I'll be scrap lifting. The main thing is like the cutout photo and the two different clusters. So I am now going to go into a process video of what I did with this as my kind of inspiration. So here I am just picking out my supplies. I had done a little bit of sort of pre-thinking here, because looking at the layout that Carrie made, I knew there were certain things that I definitely wanted to include. I also had to find a photo that worked and that I could cut out. I'm trying to use up some older stash, so this is from the Create Paper Close Knit collection. I have a few bits left in one of the paper pads I brought. It's not really thick quality paper, but it'll do, and if you mount sort of two bits together, then actually it can withstand quite a lot. So I'm just playing about trimming that down a bit. I do end up at the end even like mounting it offset, but that's fine because I've trimmed off enough for it to look okay. So I've just taken out this chicken wire stencil. It's one of my favourites at the moment. It's kind of like my go-to, and I'm just using gesso. I've not mixed it with anything. I'm just putting that on, and I'm putting it on quite thickly, and because this stencil is quite thin, you do get kind of quite a raised impression of that. So I'm just building up where my bottom cluster is going to go, and I'm going to turn it around and put one at the top as well. And this is again in reference to the layout that Carrie made, so I'm using her kind of two main clusters as my inspiration here. So I am just going to let that dry, and while I let it dry, I cut out loads of different bits and pieces. I also made those rosettes using my Sizzix die. I cut out my images and found out some other bits that I wanted to include. And that was quite a lengthy process. It was probably about half an hour to 40 minutes. I wasn't really rushing. I was just sitting watching something on Netflix, so it was quite relaxing. But I knew I wanted like lots of little elements and flowers especially, because Carrie does use a lot of floral elements on her page. I did make these rosettes, as I said, and one of those was made out of like glitter paper. It's not the POW glitter paper, it's just like a cheapy glitter paper. And it was really stiff and hard to actually make that die, but I'm glad I did, because it, adds a little bit of interest to the layout. So I am just inking everything with brown ink, but I do eventually stop doing that because I can't be bothered to ink all those flowers. But in the end it looks okay. I did take a red doily from my stash and just spritz that with some of the gold Heidi Swap Colour Shine. And that just added a little bit of interest. And I know that on the layout that Carrie made, she used a gold doily. I only had one larger gold doily, and it wasn't really going to work on this layout. So now I've got all my elements done, I'm going to start layering them up. And I am just using my wet glue here. I've just decided that there's no point kind of like fussing around and kind of moving things about. I'm just going to stick it down. I'm just going to smack it straight down, because you could spend hours fiddling around with all the tiny little elements on this page, but I decide to just go with it and commit and stick it down, because you'll see through me doing this layering that I do end up pulling bits up and moving bits around, and this glue is a really good glue. It does hold really well, but you also have a little bit of play time as well. But there's a couple of times when I do rip a bit off, but I just stick something over it, so it's absolutely fine. Here I am taking some of the gold sort of sewing thread. Again, this was on my desk, and I'm just kind of balling it up into kind of a mat of gold yeah, thread and just kind of loads of strands everywhere, and I'm just using the glue that I've already put down to stick that down. And I do really like this, and you can kind of pull it about and move it about quite a bit once you've got elements on the page. And I'm just sticking that down in 2 little places, and I will add another piece as well. Carrie did use fabric by the looks of it on hers, but I didn't really have any fabric to use. I have got some fabric tape that I find, and that's some tape that Sharon sent me. It's my road tape, I believe, and it's beautiful. I hadn't kind of used it or opened it because I was a bit like, oh, I don't really know what to do with this, but now I've opened it and played with it, and this tissue tape I'm also laying down as well. They are amazing. I will be using them, and you don't have to necessarily use it for the pattern and that. You can see I think we're really good more on a mixed media layout and putting paint and stuff over it. So you'll definitely be seeing more and more of that on layouts. So as you can see here, I'm just lifting bits and pieces up and starting to build my clusters up. A lot of this gets covered, a lot of my original gesso gets covered, but you know, that's really part of doing these kind of like loads and loads of layers, that, you know, things do get covered. And I think that's why if you spend too much time planning it and then having to pull it all up, stick it down, that's when it can become like really tiresome. So I just whack it down, and if it gets covered up, it gets covered up. At least in filming these videos you actually get to see that it was once there. I decided to stick my photo down because I was having a little bit of problems trying to keep working out where I was going to put it. And I know I need to cover that bottom bit of the photo because it was a really kind of like blunt edge. So I want to get that in place so I can start building some clusters around that. And the photo does look a bit weird because my hat does actually have 2 pom-poms on, but the angle of the photo you could only see 1, but that's okay. And that is actually what this layout is about. It is about my hat. There was a week, last week, 2 weeks ago, I had really bad roots, and yeah, my hair was a bit of a mess, and I really couldn't be bothered with it. So I wore a hat, and honestly, you think I would the only person to have ever worn a hat. I must have got asked by colleagues, by random people in shops, by my parents, by anyone, what's with the hat? Wearing a hat? Why are you wearing a hat? I was like, it's, you know, in the end I was just like, yeah, it's autumn, get over it. Because I just got really annoyed. It's like, wow, can I not wear a hat? Does there have to be a reason? I don't know. So of course for me that seemed like a worthwhile story to put on a layout. I don't know. I think it is. I also had that octopode image that I'd coloured in using my Spectrum Noirs. It is a little bit bright for this layout, but I thought, go with it. I don't care. I really enjoy colouring it in and wanted to use it up. So I'm going to put that in that top cluster. And on Carrie's layout, she did have sort of 2 different distinct clusters that weren't really joined in the middle, other than kind of like by a bit of paint and stuff. So that works fine. And as it's a cut out image and quite big, and the photo's kind of quite cut out, I think they work well together. And you know, and she's all wrapped up and wearing a hat, and no one's asking her why she's wearing a hat. So I digress. I'm ranting about hats. I'm just pulling out some other bits that I've got here on my desk. This is some bits from the Burlap and Boutique, that fancy pants one. I can't remember what it's called. So I'm going to stick one of those down there at the bottom. Most of that does end up getting covered up though. Putting those feathers, I had a couple of feathers left from another layout. Just wanted to get them used up, but I do find feathers quite difficult to use. And I'm also using one of those floral die cuts that I have left as well. And I'm just pulling up layers and slotting that behind. Again, just building it up. And I know I'm going to put one of those rosettes down the bottom as well. I do apologise that this camera angle has cut off the bottom of this layout. I'm not sure really why. I must have moved my tripod at some point, so I do apologise for that. So I'm sticking that other feather there at the top. And this is like a cocoa tin, an antique tin. I don't know. It was on a Maggie Holmes. I think it was Maggie Holmes. It may not have been. It might have been one of the Project Life cards that Carrie sent me, which I think were a crepe paper one. And I'm just sticking that behind there. Just adds another texture, adds another little bit of interest. no rhyme or reason to it really. This is a little rosette I've cut out of a Maggie Holmes Project Life card, and I'm just sticking that down with that rosette at the top. Someone did ask me on another video where I use those rosettes, are they that thick? The actual rosette itself is probably about 1/2 centimetre proud off the page. I've then added buttons, which of course does make it stand more proud. That one at the top I've also layered on top of a chipboard frame as well, so that's standing even more proud. But they are a really nice die set, and you get to join the different bits together. So that smaller one at the top is like 2 lengths joined together, and the gold one and that blue one at the bottom is 3 lengths joined together. So I do really like how they come together. So I'm just taking all these different flowers that I've cut from that piece of paper from the Randoms collection from Create Paper, and I'm just adding these all over the bottom of the photo there because I wanted to cover up that weird looking edge. And Carrie's layout does have a lot of florals on. She does use a lot of florals and dimensional flowers as well. I didn't have any dimensional flowers. I do want to make some using my Cameo because I've got a few cut files on there for them, but I didn't get round to pulling my Cameo out to do that. So I'm just popping a few of those flowers up on dimensionals, but the rest I'm just sticking down with my wet glue. And there's not really a rhyme or reason as to what I'm doing here. I'm just using it to fill in the spaces. And I'm really pleased with how this came out, and all the time that I spent cutting those flowers out were worth it. I'm just putting some gold mist over top of that, so I'm just covering up the photo with my hand because, of course, I can't really use a square piece of paper because they're not square. This is some of the gold paper that I used to make that other rosette, and I'd also punched some flowers out of it previously. I think I used that on my 2 girls in crowns layout, and I decided to just cut them out and kind of use the waste sort of flower space there. And again, it just adds that glitter in and just brings a little bit of another texture into the background. I've pulled out some stickers and bits I've got here. I joined up using 1 sticker off these sheets, and these are old sticker sheets. And that one there is the October Afternoon Weather Vane, and I think that's probably about 4 or 5 years old. It's all got kind of autumnal phrases and things on it. I joined up using a couple of stickers off there, one that says Cozy, one that says Tradition, and I end up just using the other rust coloured label that matches those. Just again adding those little bits of details in, and I've had them in my stash for quite a while and wanted to use them up. I used to really love that Weather Vane collection. It was a really nice collection actually. So I'm just sticking the other little label down there at the side, just filling in a tiny little gap. Probably can't see it in the overall layout, but I think it works quite well. So now I'm going to put my title down there, and I'm using those Goodness font from Amy Tangerine, and that is like the printed chipboard ones. And you are going to see me colour over them because that is a really good thing about those. You can, you know, colour them. You can either use ink or mists or whatever. And so I'm using some basic grey tiny sort of alphas, and I'm just playing around with the title and what I actually wanted to say. But I decided to leave it with those tiny alphas. And my title is What is with the Hat? I'm going to place that hat down, and it looks a little bit funny in that space. So that hello wasn't really working, but I really like the kind of mustardy colour. So you are going to see me cover over that, and I'm just going to use some more of that tissue tape, and also a piece of that fabric tape from Maya Road as well. And that's really lovely. I love that stuff. So thank you very much, Sharon. And so now that just adds a nice neutral base for me to put my title on. There is a little bit of a gap there, so I am going to just cut out another couple of flowers, so I do just stop the video there, so you don't have to watch me do that. And so I'm just adding those 2 flowers there to the bottom that just fills in that gap nicely. And then I cut out another couple for that top one there, just because I felt it needed a little bit something else. So I'm just sticking my thickers down. These are an older font and they're not particularly sticky anyway. As you can see, they're up to the side. They are falling off the sticker sheet. So I'm just going to put them down with a little bit of glue, because I know I'm also going to add some ink on top, so they're going to become wet, so I don't want them to lift off the page. So I'm just moving that down slightly to get that spaced out nice. And I'm just mounting these over all the different layers. So some are up higher on chipboard pieces, and some are over other bits, and some are just stuck on the background paper. But back glues just make sure everything sticks down nicely. I'm going to take this Pear Pizzazz, and if you just push down lightly on the ink pad before you open it, it does just push a little bit of ink onto the lid. And then you can just take a water brush like I am here and pick that up and use it like a paint. I learnt that technique from my friend Karen, who was a Stampin' Up demonstrator, and it's a really good way of using these inks, you know, in another way. And it's, as I said, I'd never kind of really thought about it. So I've used that Pear Pizzazz because I wanted to just bring sort of green out from the hat that I coloured in for that young person, octopode person. I could have used one of my Spectrum Noirs, but I decided to just use that mist, that ink. I've just put some Dirty Martini mist over the top, and I'm now going to stick it down onto my background. This is where I realise that I have put that person over a little bit too much, so I'm going to have to mount that over to the side. But I have done layouts like that before, and it doesn't look too bad. I think it works quite well. So I'm just pushing that down and making sure that stuck well. So I hope you've enjoyed the scrap lift. Please do go and check out Carrie. Her link is below. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to be back with some more of these kind of challenges soon. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Bye!